Okay, so together we arrive at part 8, F, maybe? What is this? The completion. This is page 16. It's literally the completion of chapter 7 or section 7, which was just a bear. And I'm glad you're still sticking around, and I'm really looking forward to, I want to encourage you to continue to get the book. If you don't have it, it's right here, or the link in the description. And here's the cover of the one that we are using here currently. But that's not to say the one that you can get in the link above here or in the description is not, it's exactly the same one. It's got a little bit of a different color, you know, some blue and orange again. The cover is a little different, but it's exactly the same. So if I say page 16, I've come to learn that it's exactly the same page 16 that you're looking at. So again, we're going to follow through with reading word by word and just absorb whatever we can. And this is talking a little bit about chord synonyms that we've been dealing with in the previous part 8 sequence, okay? So there are some chords with different names, but the same notes, and they may be used in place of each other. The most important ones will be listed here. They are given in only one key, but you should try to learn them and you should try to learn them in all keys. For instance, C-6 equals A-7 flat 5. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at that because I don't want to overlook any of this stuff. I want to talk about this so we can absorb it as we go, as we proceed. So C-6 is a 1 flat 3, 1 flat 3 6, and then a 9 or whatever. Well, we can use 1, right? So A-7 flat 5 also is, if we use an A root note underneath that instead of the C for the root note, we have a flat 3, a flat 5, a root, and a flat 3 again. So they're equivalent. They're basically the same chord. Therefore, D-6, so that being said, if it's an A root note, D-6 is also B-7 flat 5, and E flat minor 6 is also C-7 flat 5. And kind of cool stuff to think about. Don't try to take on too much at once, though. It's important. It is not important for us, I'm going to say us, to learn all of the synonyms at first because we probably won't know where to put the chords, right? So it doesn't matter what you called them. If you do not understand the substitutions and voice leadings, which leads us to sections 11 and 13, which we'll get to shortly. So voice leading is a large part of why we just did what we're doing and why we want to continue to go back and review all of these pieces as we move forward and before we move forward. So we want to try to absorb all of this stuff as much as we can, but don't let it hold us back from moving forward. Be sure to come back and revisit, I think, is where he's coming from on this remark. So study these first and gradually, and keep coming back to the synonyms, which I guess we just said, and you will find that you are able to apply some of them very easily. So through cyclical sequencing, and who's the famous psychologist who started talking about that learning style, that learning pattern? The main benefit of knowing chord synonyms is that you can use them to come up with substitute chords. So that's cool. That's a really cool guitaristic thing to do, for sure. You wouldn't have come up with otherwise. So substitutes, knowing all of these chords, we can use, there's some overlap. So some of these chords mean something close enough, they're closely related enough to the chords that we are using at the moment where we could substitute one for the other. So for example, if you saw an A-7 flat 5 on a piece of sheet music and you knew that it was the same as F9 with no root, you might try replacing the A-7 flat 5 with F9 with a root, right? So what does that do? So A-7 flat 5, let me put a pick over here so I know where to come back to. So A-7 flat 5, whoop, pick is doing a little slippity slide. So A-7 flat 5, let's take a look. I use the root flat 7, flat 3, and then flat 5. And then with a root, right? We're going to use the F note. Let's take a look at what happens if we put an F in there. Does it become a flat 6? So F, is the flat 6, so like F9. So let's take a look at F9. So let's just say let's relate this to an A chord. So there's a flat 6, a flat 3, a flat 5, a root, a flat 3, and a flat 7. So imagine the bass player is playing an A note there, or an F7 with a 6, or F13, right? So we have also the root flat 3, the root flat 7, 3, and 13 as an F. But if we call it an A note, we'd have a flat 6. We'd have a let's see, a flat 6, a flat 5, a root, and a 4. So we have these different chord tones or colors that become available to us as we proceed into our what do? We become a more advanced guitarist, right? And there's a little quote from 𝗪𝗏𝘃. So or any other F chord for that matter that is dominant 7 family. So that can relate to the A minor 7 flat 5 is what he's saying. So if you don't understand this about substituting extensions within a family, see section 11, just go take a look at it on page 58, near the beginning of the page. And now we're just going to run through what he's talking about. He's listed 5, 6, 7, 8 different examples here in writing in the book on page 16. So we're just going to run through these. So the C minor 6, so we have, which we've already gone through, is the root, flat 3, 6, and then the 1. And then as an A minor 7 flat 5, we have a flat 3, a flat 5, a root, and then a flatted 3. So that's also the same as F9 with no root note, because we have the C minor 6 with the 5 on the top. Pretty cool stuff. The C minor 6, 9 is all of the same, right? So it's the C minor 6, 9, so let's take a quick look at that. Here's a nice voicing for that. We haven't played this one much, I don't think, but if we had it, if it relates to the A minor 7 flat 5, we have flat 3, flat 5, flat 9, and then, we don't want to have that flat 9, that flatted 7 in there, so we could do, let's just do it this way. So 1, flat 3, 6, and then 9. So we have the flat 3 as it relates to A minor now, and then the flat 5, the root note, and then the 11. Right, pretty cool stuff. The F13 has it's also an F13 chord with no root note, and it's also the same as B7 flat 9. Kind of an interesting voicing. Notice also the similarity of C minor major 7, 9, right? So C minor major 7, 9, let's take a quick look at what if I use the flatted 3 of the C minor major 7, 9, or this one from the contentious one from the beginning of the book. So what if I used this in place of the A with an A root note? So we'd be a flat 5, a flat 7, a 9, and an 11. Really cool stuff. And it's also like an F13 sharp 11. So all of these chords are very, very plural or synonym. They're like synonyms, I guess, as we've been through this whole chapter. C minor 7 and E flat 6, or might be two relative chords, right? So C minor 9, we're talking about related chords now, and they're subs. C minor 9 with no root would be like the, same as E flat major 7. Instead of 1, 5, flat 7, and 9, we have a root E flat, 1, 3, 5, major 7. All right, so let's take a look at C minor 11 with no root. So C minor 11, how are we going to look at that? So this is a nice C minor 11 chord right here. We have the 1, flat 3, flat 7, 4, and then flat 3, and then 5. So if I use the E note, it's E flat major 9. 1, 1, let's see, we got 5, 7, 9. So really cool stuff going on here, and we might be pulling my strings a little too hard out of tune. So also note, actually all C minor 7 type chords are similar to all E flat major type chords. Also note that E flat major 9 contains a G minor 7 chord. So in one line of thinking, the 6 minor 7 or the C minor 7 and 3 minor 7 are strongly related to E flat. Also notice the similarity of C minor 7 and C minor 7 sharp 9. So C minor, let's take that, let's break that down real quick. So C minor 7 and G minor 7 are both related to E flat major. So one's the relative major, right? And then one is the sort of the median dominant or the median minor, right? So there's all of these notes from both of these chords share a lot of chord tones with the parent major chord, and vice versa. So I'd like for you to just take a minute and walk through some of that on your own, if you don't mind, because it's good for us to do it on our own, and that's how we learn it the best, I think. It's a good approach. But the C minor 7 and the C 7 sharp 9, those are worth critically understanding because these present well in American blues and jazz music as we blur the lines between major and minor in the tonalities that we decide to work in. So if you have questions about what I just said, let me know, or you wanted to expand on that, let's do that in the comments, because great place. I've been getting all kinds of wonderful comments, and we're all learning from this communication, so love that. C7 flat 9, no root, is C7. So let's take a look at C7 flat 9 with no root. It's the same as E flat 7 flat 9. Let's see. So we have the 3 flat 7 flat 9. If we're using E flat 7 flat 9 without the root, we have the 5 flat 7 and 3 of the C7 flat 9. And then if we have the G flat 7 flat 9 is the relating to C, would be the flat 7 3 and the 5. And then the A7 flat 9 with no root relating to C would be the flat 9, 5, and then flat 7. So there's a lot of stuff going on here in the diminished sequence. Definitely a source where we can really dig and study for another sort of tangential lifetime. So let's take a look at C7 flat 5, and then we're talking from diminished. Now we're talking about augmented sequencing here. So C7 flat 5 is the same as G flat 7 flat 5 with no root, or the D9 with no root. So that's an interesting thing to consider. So I could have, a regular D9 chord, and then I could play some kind of funky stuff based on the C dominant or a C7 chord with a flatted fifth, or the G7 chord with a flatted fifth in it. Somehow relates to the D9 with no root note and the A flat 9, because they're all tritones away, and they have whole steps in them that place them in a sequence. We can talk a little bit more about that. C9 flat 5, C9 flat 5. So what we're doing now is we're taking a look at the tritone substitutions. The C9 flat 5 with no root is the same thing as G flat 7 augmented. So we have the C7 or C9 9 flat 5 is the same thing as G flat chord with the 7th flatted 7 with the augmented 5th. So there are some really cool things happening around the augmented sequence as well. So C9 flat 5 again equals D9 augmented with a 9. C9 because I have the C and then a 9 and then a C9 augmented. Let's look at it this way. C9, we have the C with this flat 5 and then we have the flat 7 and then the the 3, and I guess we don't have the 9 in there, but if we do play the D note in the bass, we have the 9, and then if we do the D augmented, we have the, as a C, we'll use the 9, the flat 7, the 1, and then the flat 5. So there's an interesting, or sharp 5, right? So augmented. So that's a really interesting thing to be aware of if we just kind of just have some fun in those fields of study. And notice also the similarities of C11, right? C11, C7 sus, G minor 7, 11, the B flat 9, the B flat 6, 9, and the D minor 7 augmented, all so between the C13 sus, the C7 6 sus, the G minor 11, and B flat major 7 or B flat major 9. So the similarities, what are we looking at exactly for similarities here? So here's my C dominant 11. So I'm going to look at the root, the flat 7, because the 11 chord has a flat 7. It's basically a dominant family, right? And then the 9, and then the 11. So I'm going to just abbreviate it for our purposes. The C7 chord, we have the root flat 7, the 9, and then the 11. And if we were to do the C7 sus, we have everything basically except for the 9, right? Pretty much everything except for the 9. And we have the G minor 11, the G minor 7, 11. That's all of the same notes. We have the 5, the flats, the 4, the flat 7, and then the root. G minor, the way G minor 7 relates to, or the 11 chord relates to C. And this is fascinating. Let's take a look at how the B flat 9 factors into this. So we have the C, the 2, the 9 would be the C, the root note, right? And then we have the flat 7, we have the, so is this B flat add 9 or 7, 9? Yeah, it looks like it's got the, let's see, what is that? The sharp 5, the 9, and then the root note in it. And then maybe the 5th and the 9 and the root note. So there's a lot of pluralism going on here. The D minor 7 augmented. So the D minor 7 would be like the same thing as basically a B flat chord with all of the extensions on it. B flat major, right? Or B flat 6, 9 with the 3, the root, the 9, and then the 5, and then the 7, major 7. So the D minor 7 augmented is also, let's see how that relates back to C. It says the 2, the flat 7, the root, and then the 11. So geez, all of these things, all of these chords become, all of a sudden it's just poof. All of these chords appear to be all of these other chords, and now we have to categorize between where we can use what and when, and where are these synonyms going to be useful for, chords of plurality, or how does this affect the way I'm soloing or the way I'm thinking about harmony, or where I'm placing melody. It gives us a lot more options to observe and to perform. So also between C13 sus, let's take a look at the C13 sus. I think there was something like, I don't know where it is, but let's take a look at C13 sus. I think this was a good one. So 1 flat 7, we have the 4, we have the 13 and the 9. And let's take a look at the C13 sus and the C7 6 sus with G minor 11. So that G minor 11 is basically the same chord, but with we're adding the fifth into the C chord, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on in the B flat major 7 relating to this chord. We have a B flat major 7 on the top of that C13 sus. So that's literally a B flat major 7 chord with a C note in the bass. So that's interesting stuff to really consider. And I've had a few of us have offered up this kind of rhetoric in the comments, and I think we're just going to continue to expand that as we run along here. I expect some really good comments on this session, on this video. And notice the similarity between C13 flat 9. So C13, let's take a look. We've got the C13 with a flat 9 and the G flat 7 with a sharp 9. What is that? Let's do the G flat third. Let's do that right here. G flat 7, sharp 9. So we have the flat 5, the flat 7, the 3, the 13, and then we'd have the 5, right? So all of these chords share all of these notes, and that's basically what we're going after at the end of section 7 of this book. Is we're summarizing that all of this material that we're acquiring can be employed in the service of the great harmony in the sky, right? The universal plan or the universal harmony. So there are some who are just really gifted at that, Charlie Hayden, some Keith Jarrett, Ted Greene, Mr. Greene. There's also the similarity between C7 flat 9 flat 5. C7 flat 9. So we've got to do this. And then the G flat 7 sharp 9. So we have the 1 flat 7, the 3, the flat, what is this? The flatted 5, and then the flat 9. If this was a G flat root note, we'd have a 1, 3, 7, 1, and 5, and then we'd have a sharp 9, let's see, which is, the 13. So all of these notes, depending on the tritone substitutions and depending on plurality, and then whether we're in the diminished sequence or the augmented sequence, these all make a difference in the long run, and we can start to begin to summarize these things with larger labels. I think that's where we're going. And number 8, notice that a demolished chord equals 𝗬𝗪𝗓𝗃. So we'll end there. I hope you had fun, and I hope you continue to have fun. And if you haven't liked, shared, subscribe, do that. Share it with a friend, and let's kind of get, it might not hurt to get a little competitive with it too, I see there's some really gifted guitar players making comments. So if you can, track them down. They're really gifted players, and go find them and go support their YouTube channels as they sort of grow. We're all growing together. So let's do it. And until next time, we're getting ready for section 8. Chord reference charts is the next up, right? So this is going to be another place where the rubber meets the road. And until we meet again, happy picking.